Hello guys, hope you're all doing peachy, rain niblet here. Hope you all had a great Christmas and great New Year. And to start off your New Year, we're going to be talking about full range versus partial range of motion and which one's more beneficial for your athletic development if you're in sports, recreationally or professional or whatever, or how they can improve your activities daily living or just maintaining general good health overall. So so that's what I'm going to be looking at in this video. This You hear people talk about partial range of motion versus full range of motion, which one's more beneficial for hypertrophy, bone density, injuries, rehabilitation, things like that. Although you'll probably see people doing partial range of motion where they're just basically just bicep curling in minimal degrees of angles, see, which can actually develop muscle hypertrophy because you are causing tension and myofibrillar and sarcoplasmic tears in the muscles. So that can happen, but some people may not find it as beneficial as full range of motion, and some people may think vice versa. So we're going to have a look at that now. I've got a systematic view and meta-analysis here. Partial versus full range of motion resistance training. Systematic view and meta-analysis done by Wolf et al., International Journal of Strength and Conditioning. So, resistance training is commonly used to induce muscle hypertrophy. We develop muscle hypertrophy, which is the tears of myofibrils and sarcoplasmic. You got the two types of hypertrophies, which both accumulatively develop more muscle mass or muscle growth. It helps increase with performance, strength improvements. If you improve strength, you can improve power. If you improve more power and strength, you've actually recruited more motor units. Where neogenesis, which means new nerves, take place as well after you've done your exercising, and the process of protein synthesis that's occurred to build up the damaged tissues within the muscles. More nerves starts to develop, you can recruit more muscles. So that's where you see that bigger people can actually lift heavier objects because they got more motor units that they can recruit in comparison to probably more of a smaller person. That makes sense. So talk about range of motions, resistance training. It's done in powerlifting, strongman, performance fields. In recent years, range of motion employs during resistance training has become a controversial topic. Range of motion, it's got F range of motion, which is free range of motion. Discuss that in just a second in some context. And and then you've got here partial range of motion P1 there. Okay, so you got full range of motion left there, and then partial range of motion there. Okay, so you got key part here. While both partial range of motion and full range of motion resistance training has been shown to produce improvements in a variety of muscle size and performance outcomes, it is unclear which strategy, if any, results in greater adaptations. So they're not sure whether full range or partial range of motion is more beneficial, which one's more beneficial, which one improves physiological development or benefits significantly. That makes sense. There are inherent differences between the two. That could plausibly lead to meaningfully differences, adaptations, both in magnitude and in transferability performance. So you could have a look at that, for example, where they actually have the more of an angle with their elbow joints there. So you're looking at the humeral ulnar joint there. So dart players have that's a lot. I don't know how I hold that, but they are in partial range of motion. So partial range of motion could actually help them more than full range of motion. Whereas when you're looking at boxers, when I go for a full jab or reverse, full hook, swing, haymaker, anything like that, full range of motion, they use that benefit within the joints because they can produce more mass, but they have more mass, so and they can produce more speed. So that's how they develop more force. Force equals mass times acceleration. So the more acceleration they can produce within their overall mass, the more force they can deliver to knock down their opponent. In addition, it has been suggested that passive range of motion may promote greater muscle deoxygenation, greater blood lactate accumulation compared to full range of motion. So what that's saying is that the partial range of motion, this one here, it would give more muscles to deoxygenate. They'll remove the deoxygenated blood away from the muscles, produce greater blood lactate accumulation, which is always product during training, which is part of the soreness, but that lactate is actually used up for more energy. So other energy sources is adenosine triphosphate phosphocreatine. And when we're looking at that, when we're looking at blood lactate, that is used up as an energy source to replenish the phosphocreatine molecule that's been used up during exercises. Compared to full range of motion, which apparently produces less or gives less. To summarise, it's unclear whether differences between the two lead to different results in morphological and or musculoskeletal function and outcomes. So they don't know which one provides better muscle growth, which one provides more muscle adaptations, performance adaptations. That makes sense, yeah. So, and that's what they're looking at now. So they're looking at is full range or partial range better than the opposition. So we go down to the results, which I think I went past. So this bit of results, they included 27 studies according to this little chart here. So with this, look, this is an old one, 89. Oh yeah, I wasn't even born then. Some significant, 89. What am I about? I was born, yeah. I was probably my first birthday then. Some significant difference between the groups, i.e. training at specific range of motion, resulting in greater isometric strength gains in range of motion. A little bit further on, some significant between group differences, training and specific range of motion, resulting in greater isometric strength. So isometric strength has been included, and they found benefits within those. So you could use that for that. Here we got full range of motion experience significantly greater 1 rep max improvements than passive range of motions. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah, saw significant greater improvements in counter movement jumps. Okay, so they're saying that the full range of motion has improved physiological performance. Like in here, it improved the 1 rep max in this systematic review, research, which is done by Rees et al. 25 years ago, and Cook et al. Full range of motion, has improved in greater counter. 1 rep max has been improved and counter movement jump velocity. Okay, so they can jump higher at a quicker pace. It's an interesting one. Still et al. 2013. No significant difference between groups for lumbar extension strength. Okay, so there's a little bit of controversy within spinal movement where we should flex or extend the spines because of the intervertebral discs that, if you're not doing right, it will cause lumbar disc hernias, which could potentially lead to secondary pathologies or conditions, if you will. So, a bit more recently, McMahon et al. 2014, some significant differences in favour of full range of motion for exercise and a few further of passive range of motion for emphasis in passive range of angles. Does that finish? That's it. I think it has, yeah. That's that one. Let's have a look at that one. Significant difference in favour of full range of motion for CSA and a few in favour of passive range of motion for MVC in passive range of motion angles. Okay, I'm not quite understanding what I mean by CSA and MVC. We'll try and find that actually. Try that. So, look, CSA. So I've got matches. Yep, CSA. Got one there. Okay, one there. I've got one. No. Just gonna have a little quick search on that. Okay. CSA definition. Try human physiology. Okay, yeah, cross-sectional areas. Okay, right, that makes sense now. Yeah. Oh, I feel like I've done that. Right, yeah, cross-sectional area. So, let me just read that one again. I think it was tough, wasn't it? Yeah. McMahon. Right. CSA, cross-sectional area. Okay. So significant difference in favour of full range of motion for cross-sectional area. Right. So what that's saying is that they found more myofibril and sarcoplasmic tears within the whole muscle that's been worked. So when you look at the muscle, imagine my hand is like the biceps, for example. They use full range of motion where it's targeting the whole muscle. The whole muscle gets tears, photosynthesis, all that jazz. And that's actually improved the overall muscle hypertrophy or muscle size. The other one was MVC. Let's have a look at that. So MVC, let's have a look at that. Right, okay, yeah. Maximal voluntary contraction. So according to this, which is quite interesting, that passive range of motion was in favour or was preferred for more maximal muscle voluntary contraction. So what they're saying is that voluntary contractions, when you're actually doing it yourself, like a bicycle, hamstring extensions, things like that, that actually found that in favour, which is quite interesting. And it actually helps with the angles, apparently. So it sounds like they improved on range of motion. Look a little more recent. Similar improvements. Wiley et al. 2020. Similar improvements for vertical joint height, force squats, range of motion, and output power when increasing range of motion from passive range of motion to full range of motion compared to continuous training with full range of motions. So they found similarities, but when increasing range of motion from pROM to full. Right, so try interpreting that. They started off with partial range of motion, so they did smaller movements. Let's get rid of that. And they found that they found significant improvements within a vertical jump height, so they could jump higher. They could do more squats, full squats, so they improved range of motion when it came to going from partial to full range. That makes sense. If you look at the very recent one, 2021, Joyce et al. Training passive range of motion at longer muscle lengths generally resulted in greater muscle and strength adaptations than full range of motion or partial range of motion at shorter muscle lengths. So, in my interpretation to this, training passive range of motion at longer muscle lengths generally resulted in greater muscle. So partial longer muscle lengths. So rather than partial within a short, let's say bicycle, rather than just coming up here, they come from here a little bit more, but not completely up and then down. And that they found generated greater muscle strength and adaptations as well in other ways. So I hope all that makes sense. So yeah, these are level of evidence: moderate, high, moderate, high. So not bad because we're looking at the bicephals there. So all study summary estimates that what we're looking at. These are the plot charts for what we call forest graphs. See, somewhat balanced. All study summary estimates. What's that one? Overall model. Okay. So hedges positive effects favourable. So in my mind, that's saying that they're favouring full range of motion. Positive effects favourable. Okay, so we've got strength here. So we've got outcomes here, subcategories. So we've got strength there. So it's developed in strength. It's developed in sport performance, power, muscle size, and body fat. So that interpretation to me is saying that when you look at here, muscle size is that here. This graph here, we've got muscle size. The second on the bottom there is a little over there. So we increase muscle size. Remember what I said earlier, when we develop more muscle hypertrophy and muscle size, we start developing more nerves, neogenesis. And when you develop more power, when you get more muscle, you can develop more power. And when you can develop more power, you can develop more strength and vice versa. And when you can develop those two components, we can improve on our sports performance. Study design, okay. Hypertrophy measurements for proximal or distal locations. So proximal just seems a little bit less than distal. So to me, that's saying that the proximal, which is closer, or the distal, which is further out. So in my mind, so the closer you are, which is partial, you're probably not going to develop as much. You can develop it, but probably not as much as you do with distal. So full range, going fully in, fully out, full range of motion. And that's what my mind comes to it as well. So many more as well. This is an interesting one. This one may help if you decide whether you're using free weights or machine weights or a combination of both. So resistance training, resistance machines, they seem to have greater effect in comparison to free weights. Look at here, coming straight down. There's a difference between it. However, a combination of the two seems to be more beneficial. So you can actually use both machines and free weights to improve your muscle mass, hypertrophy strength, things like that. Okay. I hope I'm making sense. Upper body, lower body, they seem to be almost equivalent. That's fine, yeah. Okay. Bias, yeah. Partial bias, some no bias seems to be just a little bit on that side, and full bias seems to be quite a bit. So there may be some bias within the studies, or most of the studies that have contributed to these findings. Train muscle, length hypertrophy only, so long or short. So it seems like muscle length during passive range of motion subgroups analysis. Okay, so it seems like short. Seems like A seems to be more, yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna not too fond of those graphs really. That's actually my eyes a bit. However, can find conclusions. Okay, let's get rid of that. Conclusion. Okay, if a difference in regional hypertrophy does exist between passive range of motion and range of motion, gives conclusion credibility. Okay, so right. If a difference in regional hypertrophy does exist between passive range of motion and free range of motion resistance training or shorter and longer muscle length training, further data are required to give this conclusion further credibility. In my interpretation of that, more research needs to be done on it. So they need to really look at partial. So they need participants to do partial and participants to do full range to conclude whether one is better than the other. Right, here we go. So their overall conclusion. It seems that full range of motion outperforms passive range of motion for all outcome types, but effect size range from trivial to small studies. I think it was best overall on between 2.8. So it's not that significant, really. Change favouring full range of motion. It appears that there may be small differences. There's myself there. Sorry. Let's just highlight this second. Okay. Okay. It appears that there may be small differences in outcomes depending on exactly how range of motion was manipulated, short versus long muscle lengths for regional hypertrophy. So coaches, athletes may wish to adapt the range of motion strategies most appropriate to their goals. So depending on the goals, one's going to be in favour than the other. Again, like with the example before, if you've got a dart athlete, partial range of motion may be more beneficial than full range, and boxers, full range more than partial. The principles of specificity likely also applies to range of motion, such that training should usually replicate the range of motion of the outcome of interest. So, again, partial range of motion with the dart, fling it, even though their arms are slightly flexed, well, partially flexed, remember, partially flexed, and then they do fully extend, but it's always partial movement. My arm may be fully extended, so it's full range, but when it's from this angle to this angle, it's only a very small movement, so it's only a partial movement. There may be people that might mistake this as full range of motion, which in theory this is, but it's the small movement that makes it partial. That makes sense. So, with that, full range of motion again, boxing, jab, hooks, things like that, or roundhouse kick, things like that. I mean, MMA fighters can actually get away with both partial and full range of motion. So if you're looking at wrestling or Brazilian jiu-jitsu or something, get rear naked choke, partial range of motion, just bring back the scapulars, shoulders, so little movements, it's partial range of motion. So I hope that makes sense, guys. Yeah, so partial range of motion and full range of motion have their places. In my personal perspectives, I got time. I've got 6 minutes left. Okay, should be enough. To wrap this up, guys, in conclusion, you could actually use both full range and partial range of motion. But in my perspectives, I would strongly suggest going full range of motion. The reason for that is because you increase greater bone density. What I mean by that is that when you weight training, we all know that science found that bone density develops and increases when you do resistance training. So when you're looking at partial, you're probably only going to get a small microfractures within the bones. If you go full range of motion, that's when you can target more of the muscle bone. Therefore, more bone density throughout the whole muscle. If you're doing a back squat, for example, if you're going partial, imagine that's my femur, sorry, that's my tibia. Full range of motion, you're only going to get some partial. Bones do have some elasticity. It's very minor, but they do. However, and that what causes the microfractures. So when you go partial range of motion, hope you can see my hand, it causes minor fractures. But if you go full range, and when you're lifting heavy, you're coming back up, it causes more stress on the bones, therefore causing more microfractures, which is what we want because it improves more bone density and bone health, and it improves calcium deficiency, calcium density within the bones, And with that as well, with muscles and tendons, it helps tears more muscles. So the more muscles we can tear, the more it can build up and get bigger. When you see these suitcase carriers, you probably know they don't do partial range of motion because they're doing that. And the key word you want to probably take away from this is adaptations. If you only do this, just this here, that's your body's going to develop into that motion. Again, darts, they're only doing that, so they'll only be around this angle for the darts. I hope that makes sense, people. Leave comments down below. Actually, in a rehab perspective, partial range of motions I will actually include for reasons that when you have an injury, range of motion is going to be lost. If it's a muscle tear, you're going to lose range of motion. If it's grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, if it's grade 3, it's a significant loss. You're losing around about approximately 87 to 100% of range of motion, depending how evasive the tear is. So that's the tendon there on the bone. If it just tears off like that, you're going to lose significant amount of tears. You're going to lose significant amount of range of motion. But if it's just a minor tear, say grade 2, you will lose quite a bit. You lose a moderate amount, between about 20 to about 50, 60 odd percent. You still have range of motion, but you can't use all of it. And that's where partial can be used. And that's why I use partial range of motion for rehabilitation, to get the blood flowing to the injured tissues, supplement it with oxygen and nutrients that it needs to help facilitate soft tissue healing. Sorry guys, I'm just going with the camera a bit. It's sun's glaring. I've bought some blinds, but I'm not coming until Sunday, so yeah. But that's when I will use my partial range of motions. So they both have their places. If you're doing resistance training, if you're going to a gym, if you're doing athletic performance or just general health and fitness, things like that, I would strongly recommend full range of motion, because my personal perspective, you will develop more benefits from it rather than doing partial. But partial, I would use in a rehab component of it, in a rehab setting, just to get the joints moving again, to keep its memory of movement and motion. And while it's healing, when pain reduces, we can then improve on the range of motion after. And once when the pain's gone or significantly reduced and it can go more or less full range, that's when we can actually start implementing full range of motion again. And that's the approach that I would take with it. I hope that makes sense. And yeah. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's informative, and I hope it helped you decide how you're going to train now for your goals, your fitness goals, whether it's